Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to the Haunt Collection Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Chris Codina, and I am very tired. I didn't get much sleep last night, just couldn't fall asleep. And I was going to go to bed early, and then I remembered I had to record an episode so I can get it out on, Sunday. I kind of feel bad because a friend of mine was visiting. I believe she listens. Hi, Kitty. She was visiting, and we were trying to catch up on The Walking Dead, even though it's been a struggle to watch that show since the whole Negan thing started. But we were catching up on it. I was just struggling, and I just started yawning, and so we had to stop. And then I was like, oh yeah, I need to record an episode. So yeah, sorry about that, Kitty. Thank you again for the zero pop. Anyway, not too much to catch up on this week. Like I said, I'm very tired, so I just kind of want to get through the story. I went to no sleep for this one again. And it's a highly rated one from the posted in the past month. I'm not sure what the exact date was. I see it. December 14th it was posted. It has 3,284 upvotes currently. So, well received. We'll see what we think about that rating. It is a post entitled N is for Necrosis by Reddit user I Climb Fences. As always, I will have the link below in the description if you want to read along. At least it's not like a clickbait no sleep title. I don't know if you could even technically. Well, yeah, you can, because the Ranger one was very clickbaity one. I don't know if it was a clickbaity one. Because it wasn't the, I did this and I wish I hadn't, type title. But and is for Necrosis is a funny title. I don't know what it means in context of the story, but, it's obviously it's very Sesame Street. N is for Necrosis. Let's get started. And, it appears this was a British person who wrote this because, well, you'll see with the first line. But yeah, here we go. When my mum died, she weighed 262 kilograms, and I don't know metric. So when I saw that line before I started reading, I googled it, and apparently 262 kilograms adds up to about 577 pounds, so that's a lot. Continuing. As a kid, I never understood why she couldn't come for parent-teacher interviews, or school plays, or even pick me up. It'd always be a nanny or a neighbor driving me to school, at least until I was old enough to take the bus on my own. And whenever I'd come home, she'd be slumped in a chair, chin dripping with grease and sauce from whatever ready-made meals she'd eaten. Our entire house reeked with the stench of sweat stains, soaked into fat rolls, the musty aroma of a carpet left on its own for years. I wallowed in it for years, my childhood wasting away in that rotting house. I didn't know then, but now I realize some part of me always felt the sickness of it all, the festering disease that was eating away at the very foundations. Okay. So yeah, we're getting an interesting image here. Obviously, the mother is very, very, very obese. Like I said, when she dies, it adds up to about 577 pounds. As the story said, 262 kilograms. So yeah, we're getting this idea that, for whatever reason, all this character's mother can do is just sit at home and eat. And it's not a pretty image, of course. So I'm not going to comment too much yet. I don't know how I feel about the introduction as it is. I don't know if it's where it's going to go necessarily. Actually, I kind of have an idea where it's going to go, And I feel like if it goes that way, I feel like there was another story like this, but I don't know. Anyways, it doesn't matter. We'll see where it goes when it gets there, right? Let me continue, and before I start speculating with no information. As I started to get older, my ignorance turned to disgust. It was the combination of shame and fear. Shame that this was who I'd come from, that was what I could become. And fear that she was going to die one day, die and leave me all alone in this world. And I grew angry. Why couldn't she get better? Why couldn't she just stand up, get herself further than the kitchen, maybe even out of the house? A part of me wanted to starve her, keep her choked for food until she shed that rubbery exoskeleton of fat. She was still my mother, though, and I couldn't just do to her. Okay, it's what it actually says. It was a typo. It says I couldn't just do to her. Obviously, I couldn't just do that to her. Simple typo. Anyways, she was the only person I had. Still, having to rub between moist flaps of skin and fat with a damp cloth every night, clothe her, and even take her to the bathroom started to eat away at me. When the narrator described his mother's, or I don't know, it's his or hers. It hasn't said their mother's fat as a rubbery exoskeleton. I kind of don't like that. This isn't like a real criticism. I just feel like exoskeleton isn't. It's not a good descriptor, like, of fat to me. Maybe I'm speaking this because I'm a fat person myself, but it's like I wouldn't describe what I have as a exoskeleton because, like, I picture exoskeletons as, like, with bugs and, invertebrates and such like that. And I think of them usually as, hard on some level. So it's just, like, this isn't, like, a real criticism, like I said, just one of those, like, I don't like that word. I don't like that word used as a descriptor for a very, very, unhealthily fat person. Yeah. Also, this is probably my tiredness coming through, but when he's talking about, or I'm sorry, he or she, they are talking about having to wash their mother and all that. I keep thinking about the Simpsons episode. I can't think of which episode it was exactly, but I wash myself with a rag on a stick. And I keep laughing. Was that the episode where Homer got super overweight and then he imagined what would happen if Bart did? Or was it when, I don't remember. But I don't know. If you know the joke, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, I keep getting that image in my head. Oh boy, this is going to be an interesting episode. Because I'm just... Whew. Okay, let's continue. You have to understand what I was escaping when I got into med school the next state over. For the first time in my life, I wasn't directly responsible for that corpulent pig that was my mother. She'd stay in her sleepy Midwestern town, with a carer paid for with her insurance, and I'd be free to live my life. That's what I figured, anyway. The thing with that kind of plan is that there's always something to drag you down, something to eat at your hopes until there's nothing left. For me, it was my mum's necrosis. If you don't know what that is, here's a basic definition. Necrosis, the premature death of cells and living tissue. Whenever I hear the word necrosis, I think of the crocodile hunter, Steve Irwin, because I remember him talking about puff adder snakes, and that's what their venom does. It causes necrosis. Random fact. Just that's what that word makes me think of, is the crocodile hunter of all things. Rip, rest in peace. Oh boy. Okay, let's continue. What it really meant was she was rotting away in a cage of her own flesh. The weight of her own body had crushed the flesh on her backside, that it had stopped circulating blood, had started to die. It meant I had to go home and take care of her again. After only 26 days of freedom, I came back to a familiar smell of piss and sweat and mold. Do British people spell mold M-O-U-L-D? I didn't know that. I mean, I know obviously there's a lot of differences in spelling between the Queen's English and American English, where U's are in place where they aren't in American English. I just never saw mold spelled that way. Anyway, oh my god. Oh, I'm sorry, everybody. This is going to be so bad. This is going to be the worst episode ever. Or the best. I don't know. Anyway, I came back to a familiar smell of piss and sweat and mold. But that was all mixed with a new taint. Oh boy. The sour and yet sickeningly sweet smell of rotting flesh. She wasn't in her usual chair. Instead, I found her collapsed on a mattress in a bedroom she hadn't used for as long as I could remember. The springs creaking under her weight. She was dressed in a simple blue shift, almost like a hospital gown, and lifting up the bottom edge, my eyes came level to where she was rotting. So, I don't know, I'm no doctor, and I'm not an expert on this stuff, but I feel like if someone actually had, like, a piece of them rotting, they would be taken to a hospital so it could be removed, because it's not good to just leave rotting flesh attached to your body. Right? Am I wrong in that? I don't like. It's one of those words like, oh well, do you have like, what's it called, like frostbite and stuff like that? That's dead, and you lose that, right? You lose like if your finger turns like all black and stuff, you lose that, don't you? I don't know. I could be 100% wrong. Maybe, I don't know, like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, feel free to correct me. Like, I'm not going to hold that against the story necessarily. It's just something I feel like that's the case. Like, if something is rotting, you gotta, like, cut away the rotting part, right? That was the whole thing where, like, back in the day, and I think, like, they even still do it now, like, with maggots and stuff. Like, if someone is, like, gangrene or whatever, and they get the old medical maggots out and drop them on there so it eats away the dead flesh. Like, that's the thing, right? So, I don't know. I mean, let's see where this goes. I'm going to keep that in the back of my mind, but we'll see. It almost looked like some rabid animal had taken a bite out of her, except there was no raw wound. The entire gash was instead coated in some black, crumbly lumps of flesh, dry blood oozing from the cracks in between each globule of meat. Suddenly, the rotting surface jiggled, and my mum turned around to look at me. Her forehead was beaded with sweat, her glassy eyes straying away from mine. Shame flickered across her face for just a second, but that was covered up with a weak smile. No, I wasn't having it. I backed out of the room, shutting her behind the bedroom door. I'd deal with her later. Instead, I went to pack. My neighbor, Michael, raised his right hand and waved, looking at his other. I realized it was just a stump. Things had changed around here. A lot faster than I'd realized. Things were only going to change faster from there, though. Where's this going? I feel like this is coming out of left field. Like, oh, the neighbor is missing a hand, and things are changing. We're kind of getting the sort of front loading of things have changed. The rot ate into the back of her thigh in just a week. Pale white bone coming to the surface. Poking through a pit of slimy pus, lumpy flesh, and dark clotting blood. The doctor had told me to just keep it clean and disinfected. But it seemed like every time I tried to scrape off the gunk, a new layer would ooze out. I'd also started to ration her food, feeding her with a diet half the size of a regular person's in the hopes that it'd maybe help her slim down. That was a mistake. I caught her one night when she thought I was sleeping, watching from the darkness. I saw her hand reach behind her, into the weeping crater of her rotting thigh. Oh boy, here we go, kids. This is gonna get gross. She scooped out some of the gunk and the flesh, her nails scraping against the exposed bone. Shivering and groaning, obviously in extreme pain, she brought her shaky, slime-filled hand to her mouth and stuffed it in. I silently gagged as I watched her lick off the filmy white goo from her fingers, smacking her lips loudly. The next day, I covered the wound in several layers of bandage and tried to forget that image. I still have nightmares about it. Okay, so obviously, this is the big gross out factor, right? She's eating her own rotting flesh. Maybe there's something like weird going on here, like you mentioned. the neighbor with missing a hand, like, and he just kind of glossed over that, like, said, "Oh, well, things are going to change." And but I don't know, like, I'm having a rough time with that scene, just because like I feel like it's unbelievable. You know what I mean? Obviously the mother has a problem. It isn't that she's, I like to eat, I like my McDonald's. I like to eat too, but I don't think if I was, rotting, I would be having to shove, if I only ate half of what I was used to, I would have to be eating my rotting flesh. And if I would, like, I don't know why I would choose the rotting flesh. Like, why wouldn't I just, like, gnaw on my arm or something where it wasn't rotting? Yeah, so, I mean, we don't know exactly what the issue is here, the addiction, whatever it is. Like, obviously she is very much compelled to eat, and obviously it's a certain amount that she needs to eat because she wasn't getting enough of it before. Again, I don't know how medically accurate this is, but yeah, just one of those where it's like, I feel like that, she's going out of her way to reach behind her and cause herself immense pain by pulling out her rotted flesh. And, like, if that's how it is, like, it feels a little too out there to me. But maybe that's just me. I don't know. That's my initial feeling out of it. It's like, yeah, it's ew, but it's also like, come on, come on. Come on, was the name of the author? I Climb Fences. Come on. But maybe that'll change. Let's see where this goes. I nearly saw her do it several other times afterwards, toning away every time I got close. I think the only reason I didn't bring it up was because it would make it too real, and force me to acknowledge the truth of what I'd seen. She was eating her own sour, rotting flesh, and I was just letting her do it. When she finally died of a blood infection, I couldn't even stand her breath, as tainted as it was by the sickly stench of decay. She lost 26 kilos at that point. Sometimes I still can't help but wonder how much of that she had eaten. In the end, I'd had to call in a crane to carry out the final decaying remains of my mother. In a way, that was the most tragic part of her death possible. The first and last time she left the house was out of living memory. These days, I look at my own thickening waistline and shiver. Will I become her? Will I surrender to my impulses? The hunger in my belly eating me alive? Will I start to rot away? Start to eat myself just to feel like I'm full? I wish I could see the future. Okay. So my initial question is, why did it mention the neighbor missing his hand? Where was that? I didn't read that right. My neighbor, Michael, raised his right hand and waved. Looking at his other, I realized it was just a stump. Things had changed around here, a lot faster than I'd realized. Things are only going to change faster from there, though. So what is it saying? Like, is it trying to imply that the mother bit his hand off or something? Like, I don't... What is it? What is that in there for? I don't get it. Like, I'm not wrong, right? It's not just like the title. Like, it totally says that. It doesn't come back to it at all. Obviously it mentions the mother eating her own flesh, but if she, like, bit this guy's hand off, for one, she's not a human. And two, like, why would you not make a big deal of that? So I'm confused here. Let me take a look at some of the comments, because there's a lot of them. There's 188. I dig it. IDG it Bachelorette. I don't know. It's IDGIT Bachelorette. It says, holy Moses, that was disgustingly captivating to read. Let's see. A lot of people are just grossed out. New level of hardcore. That makes me laugh because it sounds like the tagline for an old, like, like a grindhouse film, or like a film that's like imitating a grindhouse film. It was a new level of hardcore. Actually, you know what it sounds like? It sounds like a tagline for an ECW show from the 90s. Like you hear Paul Heyman, this was a new level of hardcore, or Joey Styles, perhaps. Oh my god. Yeah. So, I don't know. A lot of people. Okay, so here's something. Somebody quoted the Michael thing, and it says nice reference. And there's a link. Let me see something here. Oh, okay. So this linked to another story submitted at the end of November called D is for Daniel, written by a completely different author, Doverhawk. So it seems like this is a reference to that. Yeah, I see. Like, it mentions alien hand syndrome, so maybe a character in here like cut his hand off or something. I don't know. Maybe I'll read that like next time or something, so we can get the story of that. I may have just spoiled it, or I mean, I guess this story spoiled it, right? The character loses his hand of some sort. Okay, so that was just referencing another story, like just putting it in, the No Sleep universe. I guess I'm less mad about that. I just didn't catch it. Although there seems to be some continuity issues with D is for Daniel and N is for Necrosis. I see people raising questions about what happened with Michael. Someone said, I wonder what Gordon Ramsay would think of this. And then people just started quoting him. It's raw. It's just funny. I love MasterChef, as it were. Yeah. But someone says it should be a Junji Ito manga. Maybe. I don't know. I feel like Junji Ito gets really out there with his like gross outs, but maybe not. I don't know. I don't know. Like, whatever. That's the I'm not gonna scroll through all 880 comments. This is a bad episode, right, guys? Like, I'm sorry. I'm just like rambling with no point. Like I said, I'm very tired. But let me do my best here. So I appreciate the effort to, it's just a really weird thing. It's not it's kind of the like a snapshot of here's this weird thing that happened to me. It's almost not so much a story as it is like I said, like here's a weird thing. It's my mother was, morbidly obese. She had a problem, and she basically ate herself to death because she grew too large and caused a portion of herself to rot, and she caught an infection and died. And it's just sort of like, and obviously the real like the horror aspect is the gross out like body horror of her eating her own rotting flesh. Like I said, when I mentioned it before, I have a problem with that because I don't understand it. I don't know why. It's gross, yeah. It's a gross image and it makes you cringe and squirm, and stuff like that. But why? We don't get like, oh, well, she was suffering from this condition. All he says is she liked to eat and didn't do anything. So, like, I'm just projecting the fact that she probably has a condition on there. And that, like, on top of the fact that she doesn't do anything, and aside from just eat, the fact that she would, willingly eat her own flesh, that makes me assume she has, some kind of, issue, some kind of, mental health issue. But, it doesn't say, like, it doesn't, all it is, it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't say, like, what is her issue. And so that's why, like I said, I'm not entirely sure. I could be totally wrong. I don't want to, like, sit here and Google, medical answers and stuff. It doesn't feel believable to me. And it feels just like I don't know, like, cop-out is the only word that's coming to my head at the moment. Might be a little too mean. I don't know. That's just the word that I'm thinking of. But it feels like a cop out to be like, and then she ate her own rotting flesh. And just, like I said, when I read it, yeah, it's gross. But I'm also like, why? Why did she do that? That's no read. Why would, like I said, and not only why is she eating her own flesh, but why would she specifically choose to reach back, dig out the rotting flesh from her thigh, and eat that instead of, her arm or something? Just nibble on her finger, because she, wasn't satisfied from the half portion meal she was eating or whatever. Like, I'm not even sure. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a doctor, but I can't think of. Like I said, obviously there's like compulsive eating and stuff like that. I'm sure there is. I just don't know off the top of my head. I'm sure it's probably something I might have heard. I'm sure there is like an actual, an eating disorder where you just want to eat and you can't help yourself and all that, and it's that bad, But I just like one of those. Like I said, it doesn't feel believable to me. I could be totally wrong, but yeah, like, I feel like there's a lot of questionable science in this. Like I said, I'm not totally sure, but I feel like if she had a wound like that, this massive chunk of her thigh or whatever was literally dead and rotting and still attached to her body, she would not be at home. And if she was, like, if it was her size was too big, she couldn't be accommodated at the hospital or something, there would be, a medical professional there taking care of it. It mentioned that her insurance was good enough to have, like, a nurse coming and taking care of her. So I would think that that person would continue to, show up instead of having the child come home to take care of it. Which is like, what? The insurance is going to cover somebody. I mean, I don't know how, whatever. Insurance is weird, right? And obviously this was like a British thing, so maybe it's weirder there. I don't know. But no, right? Don't you get, like, it's socialized, right? I don't know. Whatever. I mean, I'm dumb and I'm tired. The point is, the insurance was covering the nurse coming to check on her when, quote unquote, all she needed. I'm just saying that. All she needed was, like, to be cleaned and, like, dressed. But it wouldn't cover it when she had a massive piece, like, section of necrotic flesh on her. Then the son, who is, probably several times more unqualified to care for her than a nurse would be. The son has to come on, or the son child. Like I said, I'm assuming gender. This is literally, me being, assuming gender in action. The child, the person, their narrator. I'm not trying to be facetious about that, by the way. That's like a real thing. I probably sound very sarcastic. I'm not like trying to be facetious. It's just an actual thing. I keep defaulting to that the narrator is a male, which is, that's the exact issue, right? Anyway, whatever. The narrator isn't qualified to take care of this person, right? Like, at least not more so than a nurse, which they had already. It isn't like, well, we couldn't afford it or whatever. And like I said, it just seems so strange where it's like, well, all I could do was just watch it and, like, throw some disinfectant on it. I don't know, like, wouldn't she be taking, like, heavy antibiotics? I mean, if, like I said, I don't know. There's a lot of questions here, and, like, of the science aspect, of the medical aspect, and I don't know 100% if I'm right or wrong. But at the as it stands, it just feels very unbelievable to me. And And even if it isn't, like, well, it's like, well, yeah, they would totally leave somebody, at home, uh, if a section of them was rotting, and they would just leave it and, just treat it like any other wound, where you just dress it and disinfect it. Maybe that's the thing they do, but it still kind of is just a little too out there for me with the, oh, well, not only is she rotting, but she eats it too. Like, it's just, it doesn't work for me. Obviously, it worked for a lot of people. It doesn't work for me. I'm not against, gore, gross out, and stuff like that, but it's just maybe this isn't supposed to be as realistic, as I'm, like, assuming it should be. Maybe the story that it's obviously inspired by, or whatever, is also, it kind of has, like, a weird, and was whimsical the right word? I don't want to say this is whimsical, but like in a way, it sort of almost has like a funniness to it, right? Like, it kind of has like a dark humor in its own way, like in the way that like any like gross out like movies are and stuff. Like, you kind of, it's so gross you laugh at it. Like I've never seen Human Centipede, any of the movies, but like Human Centipede 2 specifically, like I've heard people talk about it, and it sounds like it's like a really dark like humor aspect to it. I'm not against that like stuff offhand, like per se, or out of hand rather. I don't know, like, off the bat, I am not against like gore, body horror type stuff. It's just one of those where, but this like, if this was supposed to be like kind of funny, because it feels like it is, but it's not that like funny, so it doesn't really work. I don't know. Like I said, it's just, I'm kind of rambling. Like I said, I'm having trouble keeping. Oh boy, I'm having trouble keeping track of what I'm saying. I'm sorry if this was a bad episode. I'm sorry. Hopefully, if the content wasn't great, like in terms of the show, me being just delirious works. But yeah, that's the most I can say about it. It doesn't feel believable. It doesn't work for me. It's gross, sure, but like, what else is it, and why? It feels forced. You know what I mean? It just doesn't work for me. And I could, like I said, I could be wrong about the whole medical aspect. I could be wrong about the tone of it. I'll give it that. I could be looking at it from the wrong perspective. So if that's the case, then, apologies to I Climb Fences. Like I said, maybe I'll read that D is for Daniel or whatever it was. And maybe that will give a better idea of like this sort of, universe, the No Sleep cinematic universe of the Blank is for Blank series. I don't know. That's it, guys. That's it for this week. I think I have to tap out. I think I'm done, right? Like I've said all there is to say. I'm not a fond of the story overall. Yeah, that's it. Thank you for listening. I'm sorry. But I'll be back next week. Hopefully clearer of mind. Yeah, thanks for listening again. All the links and stuff are in the description below. Yeah, that's it. Later.